Hello everyone and welcome. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the defensive winger player role in Football Manager, and let's get started with an overview of the role. The defensive winger is a player role used out on the flanks in the midfield. Since they are a winger role, they're going to look to get in crosses. They will also play in through balls to more advanced players. And like their name suggests, they are the most capable winger role when defending. Of all the roles in Football Manager, the defensive winger is the one most overlooked because of their name. If this was named the pressing winger, for example, this would be one of the most popular roles in the game. So let's break down the defensive winger name and talk about what they really do. In this example, the opponent has the ball on the wing just outside our penalty area. This is my defensive winger, and he's going to stay with the opponent and eventually make a key tackle in front of our goal. Here's another example. The opponent is in our attacking midfield area. This is the defensive winger, who is dropped deep to mark his opponent. And this is without any player instructions. The role will do this on their own. The defensive winger will make the tackle and clear the ball. In addition to defending, the defensive winger is more than capable on the attacking end. Here we are on the ball. This is the defensive winger. He's going to make a forward run for the goal. In this one, we're in possession and we've got two defensive wingers. They're both going to get involved in a goal. But the key aspect is their positioning when the goal is scored. They'll end up in the penalty area like a traditional winger would. And speaking of, if you're wondering what's the difference between a defensive winger and a traditional winger, well, we're going to talk about that in the next section. One of the things I always like to talk about is that a player role with hard-coded player instructions will always behave differently than a player role given those same instructions. Because two roles can have the same instructions, but you can't change their hard-coded positioning, and you can't change their hard-coded movements. Let's look at an example of this. Here's a generic 4-4-2 with a defensive winger on one side and a traditional winger on the other. The winger has been given the player instructions of close down more and tackle harder. This means the two roles have the exact same instructions. It's important to keep in mind that a defensive winger and a traditional winger are both wingers, and they have the same instructions. So the differences we're looking for are subtle and won't be drastic. Here's a normal play to see these differences. Here's the defensive winger, and this is the traditional winger. Their positioning is nearly identical. But the defensive winger is going to make a diagonal run, something this role likes to do. We saw this type of run in our highlight intro. The play continues and we work the ball to the other side where our winger is. When my player has the ball, the winger will stay wide and not make that diagonal run, because the winger likes to stay wide. Let's look at another example. When the opponent works the ball centrally, we'll see the defensive winger drop into the penalty area to help defend, while the winger stays up higher. The defensive winger will make the tackle and we start our possession. Continuing on, you can also use the defensive winger on a defend or support duty. On defend, they're going to be more defense focused, taking fewer risks and holding their position. On support, they're going to cross more often, dribble more, and generally be more attacking. This is my personal tactical preference, which you are free to ignore, of course, but I like to use the defensive winger on a support duty because I find that's the best balance of attacking and defending. Sometimes on defend they don't provide enough attack going forward, so I like to save that for when I'm closing out a match or trying to specifically shut down one flank. In the next section, we'll talk about how to use this role in a tactic. There are two roles that I love to use with a defensive winger, because I feel they're all complementary towards each other. And that's the defensive winger, the pressing forward, and the ball-winning midfielder. These roles are the three player roles most focused on disrupting the opponent, which allows you to create a pressing system just by using these player roles. And when using a defensive winger in a tactic, I find it's the only winger role that can hold down an entire flank by themselves. So when using this role, you don't always have to use fullbacks or wingbacks. For example, this is Benfica, and we're using a 3-1-4-2 without any fullbacks or wingbacks. The higher defensive line and high press team instructions will tell the players where I want them to start the press, but there is no trigger press setting. The pressing forward, ball-winning midfielder, and defensive wingers will already press the opponent. I don't need to tell them to do that. This allows more creative freedom to the advanced forward, central midfielder, and wide center backs, since they don't have to do any extra work when pressing an opponent. Let's do a highlight breakdown to see how our defense can turn into our attack. This is the opponent on the ball attacking to the left. When they get it towards our byline, we have 9 outfield players tracking back, including the 2 defensive wingers and the pressing forward. This gives us numbers in defense, while still having the advanced forward as an outlet up top. We win the ball and start our counterattack. We have 1 defensive winger on the ball, and the other one giving us our width. With the advanced forward staying up top, our central midfielder is open in space. The next part shows how underrated the defensive winger is, because they will get forward and attack. Remember, this is a winger role despite their more defensive focus. He's going to attack the ball and dribble into the penalty area. With the ball now in the penalty area, we actually don't have many players free in front of goal. This is why supporting roles like the box-to-box midfielder are vital to tactics, because you don't want every single role attacking the goal. You need some hanging around the edge of the box to take advantage of any fortunate bounces that come their way. When we went over the complete forward role, I talked about how you need a player that can fulfill multiple roles in one. Well, the defensive winger has a similar idea, because they're a strong defending role and they're a key attacking role as well, so a wide range of attributes are needed. The tricky part can be finding a player that can contribute to all these phases of play. For example, this is Matteo Darmian at Inter. We can see the number of attributes needed for the defensive winger. And while Matteo is low in a few of these attributes, he has 3 that I always love players to have: determination, teamwork, and work rate. So while he may not be the perfect offensive player, I know he's going to work hard in the tactic. For player traits, some good ones would be dives into tackles, knocks ball past opponent, and runs with ball often. Some not so good ones would be dwells on ball, does not dive into tackles, and runs with ball rarely. As we wrap up the video, a friendly reminder that I now have a Patreon account if you'd like to support the channel, and on that page is a free link to our Discord server where we're talking about Football Manager. Anyway, that is all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching.